Hi, I'm Mary Gunn. Welcome to Fun University. Hello, I'm Mary Gunn. I'm Mary Gunn Fun, founder and head professor of Fun University. Welcome to Fundamentals Masking and Introduction. Fundamentals classes are basically what I wish I had known when I first started stamping, and it's taken me 20 years to learn a lot of this stuff. So we're condensing it down into a tiny, teeny, bitty, bite-sized piece of goodness. If somebody came up to me today and said, you know, I'm new to card making, I'm new to stamping, tell me about this masking, what would I say? Well, I'll go down to PaperCam and show you what I'd say. The simple masking is basically, it's a technique used in paper crafting so that you can layer stamped images, you can color, you can shade, and you can create backgrounds and other designs, all while protecting another stamped image. That sounds like a big fancy definition, but it really boils down to this. You have a leaf stamp. You want another leaf stamp behind it. Oh no. Oh no. What do? Because if you stamp on top of it to get it to go behind it, you get this big old mess in the middle. So what we do is we mask. And that's what we're going to do tonight. The simplest masking involves this: a taped edge. That's not so hard, is it? We're going to have a real nice little crisp edge around this whole piece of paper, and then we're just going to come in with some blending brush here. This is just regular old masking tape. I'm going old school. This is not going to be the fancy masking stuff with all the fancy Simon Says masking paper and masking liquids and fluids like that. We're going old school because we're talking about as if we are a beginner. Masking tape is called, oh, somebody's at the front door. I bet it's the guy, Stephen. Masking tape is called a masking tape for a reason. It does mask off areas you don't want painted or stamped. Then we'll come back in with a little bit at the top over in the demilitarized zone right here. Because we got a blue-green and a yellow-green. Okay. Now let's see if we can get this thing to work. Just like we were saying. Okay, so now we want another leaf. This one's real simple masking. You always use a fairly thin paper. The only problem with thin paper is that if it gets saturated, it will bleed through and you can get a spot on your project. You go ahead and cut it carefully right on the line, or slightly. If you're gonna, I don't think you can stay in the same millimeter, but silly tiny millimeter line there, but you don't want to be stamping on the outside of the line because you'll get a halo, which reminds me to say, if you start with a die cut image, you're most likely to have a halo also because they don't go right up to the stamp, except now they are starting to make dies that go right up to the edge of the stamp. They're for masking. Then you just can put that right on top of there. Let's see. We'll go this way. But ta-da, it's magic. I think this is always so fun. Oopsie. Let's see. Oh, we got, you're on element. Oh, I see. Oh, I must have left it open, huh? It was the same kind of, remember some of the same things about random stamping as you do when you're masking, to twist them around, to make them go off the edge of the paper so that they look casual. I'm going to put one right here. All right. Then also another thing that might be helpful, that I've had things happen that are bad, is the masking tape keeps the ink wet. So you may want to wipe it off, but wipe it away from your project, not toward it. Unless you want to have some more extra ink. Just like so. You can use something like vellum, and when you're pulling off the masking tape, go nice and slow and pull out, not straight up. Keep moving your fingers toward the pull spot. And you could very easily get ink on your fingers too, so heads up. And they're kind of like when you're doing, you know how the nurses and doctors always take their gloves off and put them inside and out? That's not a bad idea to do on something like this either. When you're throwing it away, try to get the inside, the part that was stamped on the inside, so you don't end up with it on your fingers. Yep, that one tore a little bit. There we go. That's kind of pretty, isn't it? Pretty simple, but look how pretty it is. Then if you wanted to, you could go back in and you could add some different colors, but only if you want to. And that is simple masking. You could also use pieces of paper like Post-its all the way around. And on a grid sheet like this, you always have the cheat sheets, the cheat lines there. There we go. Pretty simple and pretty. That's simple masking. Let's do some more. Yes, it does add a lot of depth and visual interest. You're right. I love it. It's always been really a big, it's one of the things that got to me. And then went, oh, this is a cool thing. It was early on, and you guys have been stamping for quite a while, but somebody may come along and go, well, I don't know. Who do I ask? Where do I go? This one is a super simple one also. A lot of times I think of masking using flowers and leaves. Definitely adds layers without making layers. And so this is a simple little stamp. Something you do want to look for, I like to look for when I'm making a mask, are lines for a stamp that aren't terribly difficult or complex. I'm trying to see. Because if you have a lot of things, okay, like this, that would be very, very hard to do a decent job. There are things like this that you could use embossing powders and things like that to make a resist mask. But as far as cutting, oh, stay the heck away from that one. So here's one you're going to want to line up like so. I use the same leaf after I dry it on my shirt. And I did black, so now I think I'm going to use a lighter gray for a little change to add some leaves. When you're lining up to stamp over, make sure you have it right on the line of your first image, because otherwise you'll have a little gap in between. It is not, oops, maybe good in some places, but not this. This is a pretty short little thing. If I were going to do a lot of masking, you can always use, I've got a trick for that too. So we'll do that. That's got a little green from the last time. Oh, that one. Whoopsie, I missed. Had stamping. Hey, Connie. There you go. And that was the stamper's fault. Use Scotch. Here's something you can do. You can use one of these glue pens and just put a little on the back and let it get tacky, and it becomes a Post-it note for a little bit. So you can just let that get tacky, and then you'll have a little Post-it note. Scotch is Post-it glue. That would be a great thing. But I'm thinking of the person who's just getting started stamping and they want to know what to do. So I'm trying to think of just products that they may have. But if they love it, they should get Scott's Post-it glue. That's a good tip. Okie doke. And then you can just take, to make that a little fancier, take a thin nibbed, whoopsie, a thin nibbed pen and free draw a little frame. Stop when you get to the pretties. If this were black, this has ended up being gray, but I'm going to go ahead and just clean up my mess. There we go. Rubber cement, that too. We're getting to that one. I'm not there yet. So then we can go ahead and color that with another stamp, or we can just flip this over and color it. It's going to come out the edges a little bit. That's okay. Are you getting ahead of me, Sherry? I had some rubber cement, and I don't have it anymore, or else I would have shown it tonight. Okay, so you can blob on some color, and then after you get the color blobbed on, you can come back in with markers or something else that you might have. I'm trying to see if I have any gold, and I don't. That was a silly choice. But you can come in with some markers or colored pencils or something along those lines and add some detail. There we go. I'm not going to do it tonight, but that's another little class, or another little way to use masking. And this is like the go-to. I think that I have used more on this than anything else, which is putting leaves behind a flower. Okay, here we go. And now this is I put the little glue on there. You can see it's tacky now. It's like a pretty good, and then it will stick right on there and it will hold in place without ripping your paper. Okie doke. Another thing you can do along those same lines, and this didn't turn out very pretty, but another thing you can do is you can stamp a word or stamp something in the center. Do I want to cut this? Okay. Well, I'll just make it like this. You can stamp something in the center. Got it right here. Put happy birthday right there. And then we'll go ahead and grab, I'm going to use an Avery label that I had because they're not terribly sticky. And stamp the same thing. Trim around it. Like so. Place it over the word. And we'll just use this flower again because it's going to look stupid. Oh well, it's nope. Let's use something else. Oh, we'll just use this little green. We'll just use this colored blob. I had it out as an abstract blob. You know where that's from. And then just add it right on top. Okay, we're not in trouble yet because we can take this off I did notice this when I was setting this up. These Avery labels don't want to give it up too well, so you do have to kind of get in there. They do stick enough to cause trouble, a little bit of trouble. There we go. And so there, that took the ink, and there it is, still there. So you could add all sorts of fun little things on there. Use for your labels. Yeah, you can use them. Just, you might want to just, you know, pat them off a little bit before you use them, because they do stick. They still have quite a bit of stick, and you may want to just do a little bit of testing before you go and commit it to a great big project. So, but anyway, you could do that with words, or you could do something inside of another shape or anything like that. And then there's those leaves, and they were masked with the pumpkin mask. So, yep. Here's another way you can use those labels, Lee. You can use them for actual design. I just put the labels back and forth, and then just brushed over them with some ink. Avery does make a repositionable label. I just happen to have the ones that weren't. So that's true. And you can, and I think they have big sheets of it. So you can actually make masks and then put them back on the release sheet and keep them in with your stamps, which is another thing that is helpful. But this is just the labels, and it makes it kind of a cute little way to, a little different background with a happy birthday and then the stars. So that's another way to use labels. Another thing is when these guys are very handy, Post-its. I always get a lot at the beginning of every school year. And you use, because you have the little Post-it side, which is sticky. And if you want to, you can use that just like that to do a little bit of a scene there. You can use Post-its to like do the bottom part for grass and the top part for sky and all that kind of thing. Yours are old. They may have less sticky. I'm not sure. Mine aren't all that old, but they're not. And then you just go ahead, like when I made this one, I had 3 masks. So I did the yellow first. Took that one off. Did a light blue right there. Took this one off. Did the other corner in light blue. Be careful not to get anybody that's sticking out though. I'm going to show you one that I did. I was messy. And then one for the bottom. Yeah, and then just sponged them all. And of course you reuse them until they don't have anything left. And then we just added that. Now this is what happened when I was messy and I was sponging. Well, for one thing, there's several things wrong with this. One thing is I didn't put the Post-it right there on top of the line. I actually put it on the collar, and so that this was missing, and so you end up with a line if you miss. To show you what happens. Great way to clean your places here. So you have that nice little defined line there, and then you go, oh no, I wanted it to be over here. So you come back in and try to get the same color. You won't get the same value. You will always have that line. Now you can use that for your advantage at other times to get a nice gradient. But if you forget and you end up with a line and you didn't want it, there's not much hope. It's just going to have a line, but you can make a cool little gradient. So that's masking too. Okie doke. Lots of ways to mask. This is a card that was masked by just using a geometric shape. Or what? Nope, that's not true. That's not true. I just remember how I made that. I made that with craft foam. Never mind. This one I used a mask to help shade, and came in and shaded a little bit on the sides. Okie doke. And that is the next thing I'm going to show you. Shading and coloring with a mask. Okie dokie. Dog. We want dog, we're going to get dog. This is a dog stamp. And I have him double thick. Why he has the little tape here is because I was going to cut the his collar off and separate it so that that wasn't, anyway, it didn't work. And so I have them taped together. And so he came out of this. I use a craft knife. When I went to cut him, I like to just go do all the downward strokes that I can figure out, all the downward lines. Flip it around, do all of the downward lines again, except they're now new downward lines. About it. Flip it another quarter of a turn. Do any other downward lines that you may have missed. Do another quarter turn and get any other downward lines. Now this way also, because there's always one little catch that I forget. And so this way I can turn it over and I can see where all the lines have cut through. And so if there's one that's still hanging up, it's not going to come out at all. And so then you can come back and clean it up. But that's how I like to do it. And the reason, otherwise, if you're going to be using this part of it, you can just get right in there with a scissors if you want, and go ahead and trim them out too. But, okay, so we're going to stamp this little puppy. I'm going to get some black. I did them in gray on when I was playing, and I don't want gray again. Couple things, and remember, you want to have, this was almost a problem, this little stamp, and I'll tell you why. You don't want stamps with peninsulas or pointed points or things that are like a letter M is hard to mask because it's got this little pointed thing, and you inevitably, if you're not thinking really clearly, you can, in your sponging, you'll sponge up and make a little mess. So that's no fun. So here we have our little darling puppy. First, before we use him as a mask, we're going to do an outside mask, which is we could call it a reverse mask or a stencil. That's really all it is. I'm going to stick that down just a little bit so that it won't be so likely to jab. I know I will. And then we just want to make sure to get it on the line as best we can. It's human cutting here, so it's not perfect. And some of my little spots will be over and some of my little spots will be under. Handmade. Then I'm going to take an old sponge, and I know this one has going to give it up. And then you just come in and you can quick color like crazy this way. And you can get the outsides with a little more depth. The sponge needs to be thrown away. You could also obviously use a blending brush. You get almost an airbrushed look with this. It's usually very soft and there he is. I missed a little bit, didn't I? That's okay. Let's see. We can maybe fix that, but we may end up with one of those lines I was just talking about. I didn't cut it near quite close enough to the line, I guess. There, I just jabbed it a little bit. Press it in there. There we go. Then you can come in with a marker. Give him some character. Whoops, let's go dark. Could even make it black. black ears. I think we'll just leave that as is. Then, now that we have that, we can use this as a mask. You kind of have a twofer. This little tail is a problem. It's a big problem because he wants to cause trouble. Okay, so now we're going to put this guy in a desert scene. So I pulled out some cactus, and we're going to also layer our cactus. We're going to have cactus behind him, and we're also going to have cactus behind cactus. So the first one that we're going to do is the cactus that's going to be behind him, but closest to the front. And that's going to be this guy. Let's see if I can get this even close to quite straight. Okay. So the ink is going to land on the mask instead of the paper that we want our little project here, and so that it looks like it's behind him. So that's going to be our first cactus. Our next cactus is going to be a big barrel cactus over on this side. There we go. And then the last one is this little prickly pear. Now here's a tip too. I put the barrel cactus on the left side of the stamp so that when I stamped it, if this had any ink, it wouldn't come and get on top of the other images. So I did that one first, and then I put the prickly pear on the right side because it's on the left side of the project. And I didn't cut a mask for him because he's such a simple shape. I can just use an edge. And then the prickly pear, that will be the part that would have been on top of this, making it a mess. Now he's got this nice little, he's in the little desert. And this is what he looks like when he's all done. Then just color it in. Then, I forgot, I did this too. I put this guy back on and then sponged in a little bit of sky and a little bit of desert sand. I didn't worry about it being on top of the cactus because it was blue on green, and those were going to, yes, thank you, Sherry. Those were going to blend together just fine. And the tan was going to not cause any trouble on anything either. So I just had him covered up and didn't worry about the cactus. Yes, I got some ink going on here, don't I? There we go. Another way to do it is to stamp your dog image. Put your dog stamp on top of it, or your mask on top of it. Do a little sponging, and then use a background stamp for some image, for some stripes or something. This was just a cutout that I had cut out one of those blobs, and ended up putting it on the dog's face. Did the little sponging, did the little background stamp, and then added some stars. So it blocked some of those stars from coming into the circle. So there's the whole bunches of ways to make a cute dog card. You can also do the little stamp, you can also use the little, what is that? Little cloud shape too, as a mask. Even if it's clear, it's still a mask. Okie doke. Let me show you this one. It's getting kind of long in tooth, but where's that piece of paper? There we go. This little guy, I used masking tape on the word. And so what I did, you can just take a letter out I took the A out, masked it with masking tape. Have some issues here. It sticks to the stamp. Get it down in the groove so it doesn't get where it needs to. I don't want it to cause me trouble. I think we'll do this one in brown. Then ink up the stamp. But before you stamp it on your paper, take this piece of masking tape off. Obviously, if we did it the other way, which I've done just to test to see if it's wrong, and it is, you'll get that blob there. So this is a way that you can do a monogram, leave a space in the middle and add some flowers or something, even if you just wanted to draw it but you didn't want to write the word. So there's that little guy. Let's say I wanted to put, we'll just put a flower in there. But you could also stamp something. I'll show you just a second. So you can just fill something else in there, and that's another way to mask. Another way is almost like faux masking, in that you don't end up masking, but it has that look because you have a dark ink here, and then you stamp a light ink on top of it. And you don't see it on the project. It's almost like masking, except it just has that masking look without the masking hassle. So there you go. And this is what it might look like if you were doing it otherwise. And then just blend some colors on there, and it's kind of pretty. That was a stamped image. I don't know if I'd use candy corn again, but I did that time. And then the last one I'm going to tell you about is using a resist to mask. And this is where Sherry was saying you can use there's masking fluids that you can put on top of an image. For instance, I could have covered him up with masking fluid or rubber cement. It dries enough that you can work on top of it, but it doesn't dry and adhere to the paper, so you can still peel it backwards. Kind of like when you put Elmer's glue on your fingers, you can peel it off. You can do that with masking fluid too. Or in this case, I stamped these crazy, almost looking like viruses, but I stamped these crazy blobs and then stamped them again with some leaves, covered them with clear embossing, and you've seen me do that before, and you will see me do it again, I do dare say, and then put clear embossing powder on it. And so the embossing can act as a resist mask. And then just colored, this was white paper, and I colored in with a brush and some more stamps to get that background color, which is a really fun technique and really pretty at Christmas time for ornaments and things like that. Then I had that already made up, and I just stuck it on there. So those are a whole bunch of ways to introduce you to masking. A couple things that you do need to just be aware of is when your mask gets soaked with ink, it will bleed through, and that can be a problem. Not getting the edges small, or leaving halos on the outside, or not, using something that's really complicated. See, you can see the halo on there, and it doesn't bother me that much. I don't know if you can see that. Yep, there it is. It's like a teeny tiny tiny little hair of a halo. If you used a die, it would have been a bigger one. But you can also use a die and then cut it down for a mask. But you can splatter it, you can use sponging, you can use brushing, you can use clouds, you can do sprays on it. There's a lot of different things that you can use for a mask. You can have things coming out, you can put things together, you can, like a stack of cups, stack of boxes, stacks of pictures. Oh, here's one that I found a real pretty thing, and I thought, oh, I'm going to try to make it. It didn't turn out so pretty, but those are the masks. And then I'm just sponging on the black. But that's definitely a look that I couldn't get otherwise. So if you have any questions, comments, or discussion, please put it over there in the discussion tab right below in this. This got a little windy. But masking's a huge, huge concept. And I had trouble pulling myself in. Hope that did answer some questions for you. We will see you back in study hall in just a second. If you're live, if you're not, we'll see you at the next lab. Bye-bye.